The Baltimore Ravens decimate, destroy, and dominate the New York Giants in Week 15. Lamar Jackson has another Jackson 5. Rashod Bateman has a career day 2. We talk about the game, what happened, and so much more coming up on an instant reaction edition of Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin IceShaker of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for being here, making Locked On Ravens both a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day, free and available for you, all podcasting platforms, including in video form on YouTube, where you can like and subscribe to the channel. Also in audio form where you can follow along and subscribe over there as well. We are a 5-day per week plus more daily Ravens podcast, and we provide you that Ravens news, analysis, insight. We go live after every Ravens game like this, after big pieces of news as well. So if you want your daily Ravens coverage, be sure to tune in here on Locked On Ravens. Today's post-game edition of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet. You're going to start with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We are back here. Ravens absolutely dominate the Giants in Week 15. Unbelievable 35-14 victory. And this is exactly what you wanted to see out of this group. We're going to talk about Lamar Jackson's dominance. We're going to talk about Rashod Bateman breaking out, talk about what's next for Baltimore, and some things the Ravens can still clean up to get even better at over the course of the next couple of weeks. Now, before we get into all that, for those who don't know, we did hit 10,000 subscribers on YouTube last night. If you listened to our episode today previewing the game, I made a big deal about it. I'll spare you the whole speech and everything. The Dixie Cup outfit, it's ordered. It's on the way. I felt weird ordering it before 10,000. Now that 10,000 is here, it's on the way. I'm going to be wearing the Dixie Cup outfit for a full week. But all the support here on Locked On Ravens that I've gotten, it's been absolutely incredible. And I'll do it again. This is my Wilt Chamberlain 100. It's my 10,000. So here it is, 10,000. This, honestly, you could, if you told me this is how many yards Lamar Jackson had today, 10,000, or how many penalties the Ravens had, I believe either way. But 10,000 on YouTube. Here's the next 10,000. Appreciate everybody who supported me over in video form and obviously audio form as well, which we started off a couple of years prior. But let's talk about the game. I mean, let's dive into it. Lamar Jackson, first of all, domination all the way around for him. Rough start, but ended up getting the job done. He had the fumble, obviously, 2-3 plays into the game, which we're going to get to because a weird situation with Zay Flowers on that play. Lamar, though, 21 of 25, 290 yards in 5 passing touchdowns. So if you want to do some of that math, hey, guess what? Lamar Jackson, 4 incompletions, 5 touchdowns. More touchdowns and incompletions for Lamar Jackson. Again, another Jackson 5 in the books. And I thought that overall Lamar was making dot throws. He had a couple of ones that he missed, but every quarterback has a couple of those in games. And I thought this was a very good Lamar Jackson game. And this is what you're supposed to do, right? Look, I'm not crowning the Ravens Super Bowl champions because they beat a beat-up, bad, pretty much a team that wants to get to the offseason already Giants team. I'm not trying to do that. But with some of the track record that this Ravens team has, playing down to opponents, letting teams that have no business beat them. This was domination in something that was honestly very refreshing. Are there things they have to clean up here? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, there's a lot to like and a lot to kind of build on here if you're the Ravens. So I think that, in my opinion, Baltimore has a lot to like from Lamar Jackson and what he was able to do in this game. But it wasn't just the Lamar Jackson show. I mean, sure, yeah. I mean, he had 5 touchdowns, right? But they didn't necessarily have to use Derrick Henry a ton, 14 for 67 on the ground for him. Lamar himself, 6 carries for 65 yards. So he's going to be someone that I think uses his legs a little bit more. We saw some option actions, right? But I think that this situation, it was almost like, how do I want to describe it? It's like a taste to what's to come, hopefully, because you needed to be able to go out there and figure out, okay, can we beat up on a team and get momentum heading in the next week? You know, it wasn't a perfect game, but I thought that Lamar, it just felt like he was playing flag football out there. It was too easy for him. I mean, who on that defense did the Giants have? They had Thibodeau, they had Brian Burns, but other than that, there really was nobody else that was really like an impact player. And so I thought that Baltimore did a good job of kind of taking the Giants' will away from them over the course of the game, right? I mean, that's what it is. You look at some of the team stats here on offense. Baltimore went 9 of 11 on third down. The Giants' defense could not get off the field. Baltimore made a bunch of high leverage plays in this game. They held the ball for less time than the Giants, but they averaged 7.5 yards per play. They had 9.8 yards per pass. Lamar Jackson and Rashod Bateman. I mean, that's the other big story, right? Rashod Bateman going out there and just absolutely balling out. It was an awesome day for Rashod. First multi-touchdown game for Rashod Bateman in his career. 3 receptions for 80 yards, 26.7 yards per catch for Rashod Bateman in this game. So this is the thing we've been waiting for. It's been this way, right? Rashod Bateman has had good games this season for the Ravens, and even in years past, we saw them just barely miss stuff, for the connection just not really being there because both guys had to miss time. Bateman, the big concern was health. Lamar was injured sometimes when Rashod was healthy. And now you're seeing an opportunity for both guys to continuously get snaps together, continuously get opportunities together. And that, to me, is the most important thing, because now you're seeing how special of a player Rashod Bateman can be, and the trust level is there for both of those guys. You know, it's not like Rashod had a guy draped over him on his touchdown catches. He was able to work his way open. The one where he turned his defender around, going to the right, and juked out 2 guys on the way to the end zone, that's Lamar getting him the ball and saying, hey, Rashod, you do the rest, right? You do the rest. And that was a huge moment for him. So I think, look, Rashod Bateman has 7 touchdowns on the season, right? Rashod Bateman is going out there and being a complimentary number 2, and honestly sometimes taking games over, right? Between Zay Flowers and Rashod Bateman, you don't have to rely on Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews to go play superhero ball because you have other options around him. I mean, Zay had 6 for 53. Justice Hill gets involved in the action again. Man, what a steal Justice Hill is, or has been, for this Ravens team, right? What a steal that's been for them. You have Nelson Aguilar having a catch, Mark Andrews scoring a touchdown. I mean, all in all, I think you really do have to like what you see on the offensive side of the ball, because, again, it was expected, right? This is what was expected for Baltimore. So I'm excited that the Ravens were able to do this on offense, especially after a slow start with the fumble. But speaking of that fumble, it was weird because Lamar runs. Zay Flowers either expects him to kick it out to the outside, but he just doesn't block. A lot of people called that, his controller went AFK, or he didn't know what was going on. And it was Zay Flowers' guy that ended up stripping Lamar Jackson. So I don't know what the deal was there. Obviously, again, as I do on these live shows, I will be perusing through social media to see if there's any comments from Lamar Jackson, and maybe Zay will talk about it. I don't know. But I think that the big thing for me is I never touted this game up as, oh, this is the most important game on the Ravens schedule. This is the best team on the Ravens schedule. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But if this game had kind of been you squeak by or you lose, I think that derails your season. This tells you, if you're Baltimore, it gives you a big confidence boost, right? And I see, Ryan here saying this has got to be a huge confidence boost going into some tough games. And especially because the big thing for me here is the Ravens were able to rest their guys down the stretch in that fourth quarter. Almost a full quarter of rest for your guys. And now you have, again, we're in the middle of that 3-game and 11-day stretch with the Giants, the Steelers, and the Texans on the horizon for Baltimore. Pittsburgh's about to go out and play a super physical game against the Philadelphia team that took it to Baltimore last week. The fact that you were able to dominate the Giants like you were, and get your guys some rest, both offensively and defensively, that's huge. Because going into the Pittsburgh game, that Pittsburgh game is going to be your most physical game of the year. And now it's step one for the Ravens, right? Step one of getting back the AFC North. They beat the Giants, and Wladislav, I see a Steelers got to lose now. If the Steelers lose to Philly, the Ravens will be 2 games out of the North. 1 game in the loss column and 1 game due to tiebreaker because the Steelers beat the Ravens early in the year, obviously. If the Ravens beat the Steelers, if that happens in Week 16, you now have a tied division. You have a tied division because the tiebreaker goes away and the Ravens win again. So you essentially shave off 2 games. This is not the Ravens being out of it, right? They're not out of it in the AFC North. And in my opinion, Baltimore needed a game like this, and I'm really glad that they got it. But coming up in the second part of the show, we're going to be talking about Lamar Jackson's dominance a little bit more. We'll get into just how good he's been this season. Maybe we'll talk about some MVP talk as well. And then we'll, of course, talk about the defensive side of the ball. So be sure to stay tuned. We have a lot to get to on this instant reaction live edition of Locked On Ravens. Don't go anywhere. Still a lot to talk about. First, this show, though, is brought to you by Prize Picks. And Prize Picks has so much going on over there that, you know, there's a lot. You got the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in award winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. And Prize Picks, again, I love going on, seeing everything they have to offer over there on Prize Picks. And you can make your holidays bigger and brighter with Prize Picks, the best place to get real money action while watching your favorite sports. You can now earn up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks. And Prize Picks now offers MasterCard for quick and easy deposits into your account this sports season. Join now because this holiday season, Prize Picks is giving away 2 free picks in December, and they're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Picksmas. Join now because you got a lot of stuff going on over there on Prize Picks. And so for this Ravens and Giants game, if you had more on Lamar Jackson passing touchdowns, probably living large over on Prize Picks. So download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. And this show is brought to you by Omaha Steaks. Nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha Steaks. It's guaranteed perfection in every single bite. And right now you can save on unforgettable gifts with 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus score an extra $30 off with promo code NFL. With 5 generations of experience, they consistently deliver the world's best steak experience, and the gifting experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with thoughtfully curated gift packages featuring gourmet favorites, legendary steaks, and mouth-watering desserts, and more. Save 50% off site-wide for a limited time at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with promo code NFL. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com and an extra $30 off with promo code NFL. Minimum purchase may apply. Back our second segment. Locked On Ravens. Kevin IceShaker talking with you after the Ravens beat up on the New York Football Giants, 35-14, the final score. Baltimore gets a much-needed win, much-needed domination win. And Lamar Jackson at the podium saying that he's just Tez Toe Tap from now on. So I guess that's Tez Walker's new nickname. Shout out to Tez Walker, by the way. First career catch. Goes for a touchdown. You love to see stories like that, especially because I know Tez Walker was starting to get the Iman Marshall treatment of like, does this guy really exist or not? So the Ravens on a cool little fake, and Tez Walker wide open, toe tapping. Awesome for Tez Walker there. Now defensively, I mean, I thought the Ravens were awesome defensively in this game. I mentioned some of the offensive stats for the Ravens. Let's talk about defense. 3.9 yards per play given up by the Ravens defense in this game. The Giants go 2 for 12 on third down. So, I mean, look, that it's a team that, look, Tommy DeVito, not good. Tim Boyle, not good. Giants, not good. But you want to dominate not good teams like that because, again, like that Raiders game, sometimes it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to win. Those are professional football players over there. The Giants had multiple opportunities to score. They did. They put up 2 touchdowns. And hey, I said 38-10 was my final score. 35-14. I was not too far off. I was not too far off in that. But again, defensively, I thought they were good. The Giants had to go for it on 4th down 5 times because the game just got so out of hand. And I think that for me, this defense, you have guys like Roquan Smith stepping up. Obviously, Nate Wiggins has been awesome. Trash talking. He's been one of the best rookie corners in the NFL. It's good depth that the Ravens have on all 3 levels. Great to get Michael Pierce back. I thought his presence was super, super felt over the course of this game. And to me, one of the big conversation points, and I see it in the chat, right? I see it all over the place here. It is Brandon Stephens. Brandon Stephens, decently rough game overall, multiple penalties. And speaking of penalties, that is the one, I guess if you want to call Stephens, put him in the conversation too. But penalties, definitely the big area of concern still for the Ravens. 12 penalties for 112 yards in this game. Baltimore came into the league as the most penalized team in the league, most penalty yardage. And again, it's the Ravens had 2 weeks to try to figure out this undisciplinedness, this sloppiness, and they couldn't do it. Now, again, it didn't matter, right? It didn't matter. The Ravens won 35. They won by 4 touchdowns, which, again, I had said, hey, go out there and win by 4 touchdowns. Or 3 touchdowns, excuse me. Sorry. Math. There we go. 3 touchdowns. But at the end of the day, you got to be able to clean up the penalties, right? That is the big concern point. A lot of good in this game, right? You win by 21 points. You get Lamar Jackson, another incredible game. Rashod Bateman breaks out. Defensively, you're great. You're able to rest your guys. But the one thing that I want to see this team really attack is the penalties, right? That's it. And Joe, I see you in here. 1 up. Hey, Justin Tucker didn't miss today. He didn't have to attempt a field goal, but hey, you go 5 for 5 on extra points. There you go. 1 down was defensive penalties. Was every penalty a penalty? I mean, some of them were weak calls, but you still had a lot of them like, yes, okay, there was a tug on the jersey here, or Odafe Owe with the hands on the face. And it just feels like, again, we talk about this offensively, right, for a lot of just drive momentum killers. Well, defensively, if you go out there and commit penalties defensively on a big 3rd down stop, or you get your opposing offense, you're playing them, you get them in a 2nd and long, and all of a sudden you're gifting them illegal contact or pass interference or roughing the passer. It just driving the Ravens literally on that one drive, the Giants' first touchdown drive, they walked the Giants down the field with penalties, right? It was roughing the passer, I believe multiple pass interference, or maybe there was holding, and then the hands to the face. It's stuff that can't happen. And against better teams than the Giants, in my opinion, are one of the worst teams, maybe the worst team in the NFL. You have to be able to clean that up. But hey, you know what? If you score 35 points, it doesn't matter. The refs didn't have an impact on this game at the end of the day. Sure, it was frustrating and disappointing at times when it was happening in the moment, but you have the offensive performance like you do. And I think overall, you're really liking what you see from this team outside of the penalties. So we're going to see here, and I'm actually now just seeing a little off topic, but on topic. The Ravens' Week 18 opponent, the Cleveland Browns, Nick Chubb broke his foot, Kevin Stefanski said, so they will not see Nick Chubb in Week 18. But they said, the Ravens, Lamar Jackson, you talk more about that Tez Walker touchdown. This week, the Ravens had more plays drawn up from what they've been showing on defense, and the Ravens caught them in that look, and Tez did the rest there. He delivered the pass, and again, Tez toe tap is what we're now calling Tez Walker here on Locked On Ravens because Lamar Jackson says so. So when Lamar Jackson says so, we have to honor Lamar Jackson's wishes. But I thought it was a really well-called game from Todd Monken, and I thought the Ravens were switching things up. They were running option plays. They were working play action. They were doing a lot of other good things where it didn't seem, because again, we've had games this year with Todd Monken where it's just been kind of, I don't know what the game flow is here or what's going on. I thought the Baltimore, much like Lamar said, they understood their opponent. They caught the Giants in that look, and that is what we saw is a good, well-called game. And I thought Zach Gore did a good job too. Man, this Ravens defense over the past month has really turned it around. But now your test comes. right? You got the Steelers coming up on Saturday. You have the Texans on Christmas Day. That's what, at the end of the day, the Ravens have to look ahead to, right? One game at a time. 3 games in 11 days is tough, right? That for any sports player, let alone a football player who, again, we've heard the comparisons of getting into all these, essentially car crashes and, you're putting your body on the line. I don't think anybody got injured in this game, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if John Harbaugh's talked about that yet. Maybe we're going to see. But, then you have Lamar Jackson, and this is kind of the leader that he is, right? He talked to CBS after the game, and he said, I feel like we did pretty good today, but first drive I fumbled, so I'm really ticked off about that. Lamar Jackson wants absolute perfection, right? I don't think Lamar Jackson will be happy about a game he plays unless he goes perfect, no incompletions, no turnovers, all touchdowns. That is where Lamar Jackson would say, hey, I had a really good game today, and we did really good. But Lamar Jackson is still looking at ways to improve, and that's kind of that locked-in leadership that you need, right? That's that locked-in leadership that you need. So for Lamar, it's, hey, yeah, 5 touchdowns, that's pretty good. You're able to win by 3 touchdowns. That's a pretty good thing too. But, man, some of that turnover is really what Lamar is focusing in on, and that, to me, is the type of leadership the Ravens need down the stretch here. And we'll see how this team ends up performing moving forward. Coming up, though, we'll continue talking about this game because I think now you got to look ahead, but you also have to dwell on some of the good and the bad that happened in this game and try to continue to do the good things and just get rid of the bad. So be sure to stay tuned. We got a lot to get to on this live instant reaction edition of Locked On Ravens. First, this show is brought to you by FanDuel. And on FanDuel, you can get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get 100 in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, your live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. So for this Ravens and Giants game, if you picked Rashod Bateman for 2 touchdowns, or maybe you had Lamar Jackson for, multiple, maybe Tez Walker anytime touchdown, that could have gotten you a bigger turnover on FanDuel. You get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. So just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more. FanDuel, an official sports partner of the NFL. Back on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Allstriker with you on this glorious Victory Sunday, heading into Victory Monday tomorrow. I think a lot of conversation is going to be had about Lamar Jackson and MVP, and we'll get to that. First of all, though, I appreciate everybody who's here today listening to us live on Locked On Ravens. We go live after every single Ravens game, win, lose, hopefully not ties. Again, if you've been with us on Locked On Ravens, we do not like ties over on Locked On Ravens. So be sure to hit that like and subscribe button in video form. As I mentioned, hit 10,000 subscribers in video form just last night, and we're heading for the next 10,000 now. So if you want daily Ravens coverage, be sure to subscribe on YouTube and follow along in audio form, where that community has been absolutely incredible. So be sure to follow along with us on this journey. Hopefully a long journey through January and February for this Ravens team. Oh, I thought it was really impressive what the Ravens did. Obviously not perfect. We talked about the penalties, talked about some of Brandon Stevens' play. But I think it's time to have a conversation about Nate Wiggins. I think Nate Wiggins has been incredible for Baltimore. Mentioned him earlier in the show. He was talking trash to Giants fans. He's like a spark plug out there, right? He's like a spark plug on there. And to me, I think that they're playing him a bunch, right? It's not about that. But do they force him more onto Brandon Stevens' side of the field and have him almost travel in a way? I saw multiple people brought it up throughout the game. I can't remember who first said it, so my apologies. But I think that there has to be some level of a conversation, because what do you do with Brandon Stevens now? I mean, still, the getting the head around is an issue. He does have trouble covering the top receiver at times. It's not like he's been horrendous, like awful all season, but it certainly has been a far cry from what we saw from him in 2023. You have Marlon playing great. You have Nate Wiggins playing great. Trey White has come in and given you some solid snaps. Is just what I thought wasn't really going to be an impact trade whatsoever. But Brandon Stevens is a guy who, yes, unfortunately has lost himself a lot of money. I mean, we can all be honest about that. If he had a contract deal last year, he'd be rolling in the dough. But it just feels like he's lost himself a bunch of money. Speaking of the Ravens, they have a bunch of contracts on their roster right now that are just absolute steals. Like I mentioned, Justice Hill, Rashod Bateman signing that 3-year, $15 million extension. Rashod, had the whole debacle with his 5th-year option. That's why he was put in that situation. But, man, that's a steal of a deal too. Now, for Brandon Stephens, if they can bring him back on a team-friendly deal, right, could that be an option for them? Maybe. Certainly could be. But I'm not sure what this team is going to do with that, because the secondary has been great. Darius Washington coming in has been a great breath of fresh air. He obviously had the interception, and the Ravens caught an interception. They finally did it. They dropped multiple in this game, but they caught an interception. Again, this has been a low turnover defense, but I think now you can live with having Brandon Stephens out there, but I'm just not sure that, look, come playoff time, and you're going to be facing much better off. I don't think you can get much worse than the Giants offense. You're facing much better offenses than the Giants. What does that look like for Baltimore? How does that go? So I don't know what it looks like, but you do have to put Nate Wiggins out there as much as possible. And I'm not saying they're not doing that, but you got to put Nate Wiggins out there, got to put Marlon out there. But then do you rotate in? Does it become more of a platoon between Brandon Stephens and Trey White, right? That to me is going to be a really important part of this. So on the year, Baltimore's now a 9-5 football team. You have 3 weeks to get yourself right before the playoffs start, because I mentioned you can split the NFL season up into 4. Before the bye, after the bye, then you have the playoffs, and then you have the Super Bowl. So to me, this last 4-game stretch is just going to be the Ravens are going to make the playoffs, right? It's just a matter of, do they win the North, or do they get a wild card spot? I know there's been a lot of conversation about what team, you'd like to see in the playoffs. And honestly, let's play a little game here. If you're live with us in the chat, put in the comments, put in the live chat, what team you want to see the Ravens face off in the first round against. Is it Houston? Is it Pittsburgh? Would it be Baltimore making a push, maybe facing the Chargers again? If you're in the comments with us after the fact on YouTube, put it in the comments. And if you're in audio form, you should have messaged me on social media. Which team would you want to see? I still want to see the Texans, personally. To me, I think the Texans are the team. I just feel like, and that's obviously, that would happen if Baltimore doesn't win the North, right? I just think that Houston hasn't played very well for the majority of the season. They're going to walk into a playoff spot because the rest of their division is so bad. Colts are okay, but again, Titans are terrible. Jaguars are terrible. But I think that realistically, the 2 most likely options for the Ravens, it's going to be Houston in that 4-5 matchup. And then actually I have to see who won between the Steelers and Chargers earlier this year. It was the Steelers. All right. So the Steelers would get the 5 seed. So I think that the 2 most likely opponents for Baltimore, with that being said, is Texans or the Chargers. Because honestly, in my opinion, Baltimore's either going to get the 3 seed or the 5 seed. I don't really see much wiggle room between there. If they win the North, they're probably getting the 3 seed. Unless Buffalo collapses, then they still have an opportunity, if they win all 3 games, to get the 2 seed. If Kansas City gets the 1, obviously. There's a lot of moving parts, and we'll get into all that, obviously, as the days go on and as the playoffs get closer. But I do think that 3 seed, if they win the North, is going to be the most realistic option. And if that happens, Pittsburgh probably gets the 5, which means the Chargers probably get the 6. So that would make a Chargers-Ravens, I guess, 2018 wild card rematch at M&T Bank Stadium. Or if they get the 5 seed, they'd be traveling to Houston again to play the Texans. So the Ravens, this AFC is so wide open. This NFL is so wide open, isn't it? I mean, the Chiefs just, I guess today for the Chiefs was better. I mean, that was more of the statement of, hey, we can win a game by more than 1 score, right? So good for the Chiefs. But Chiefs find ways to win games in crazy ways that who knows if that's sustainable in the playoffs. Right, the Bills are a team that, yes, Josh Allen. It's going to come down between Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson for MVP. I mean, look, I've still been saying these guys are pulling ahead of one another, but people are just discounting Lamar. Why are we discounting Lamar? Why are we doing it? I get that Josh Allen had MVP moments when Lamar lost, but you have Lamar with 5 touchdowns. Why was Lamar ever out of the conversation? Right? So the Bills are a good team, but defensively, that personnel worries me for the Bills. And who knows? Obviously, 2 different teams, and the Chiefs are going to have Marquise Brown come back, it looks like. So, again, and I like this comment here. Yes, of course, I agree. one game at a time, right? Don't want to look too far ahead to the playoffs. It's just if the Ravens lose this game to Pittsburgh, their AFC North hopes are dashed. Pittsburgh will win the division. If they don't and they win, then you got a little come down to the stretch type deal. But at this point, all your focus has to turn to Pittsburgh. This is the biggest game on the year for Baltimore. It's going to be their most physical game. I'm still not a big believer in the Pittsburgh offense, especially if George Pickens can't play. But, of course, we'll talk about that as the week goes on here on Locked On Ravens. But I'm glad they were able to get this momentum building win against the Giants. Maybe we look back on the season and say, hey, the Ravens dominated the Giants, and that gave them a lot of confidence moving into the remainder of their season. Hopefully that's what we're saying. We can look back on this in a month, 2 months, whatever it would be. And John Harbaugh, look, he took, I don't know if you want to call this accountability or not, but he essentially talked about the issue. He said if it wasn't for those penalties, those touchdown drives wouldn't have happened, right? So he understands the penalties are an issue. Now, the problem is they've been an issue for the entire season. And now we're 3 weeks away from the playoffs starting, and you're like, okay, well, you really got to figure it out. So in my opinion, look, you got to just get the chip off your shoulder for the Ravens, for the Steelers, right? Get that off, right? Maybe, they'll have a chip on their shoulder going into Pittsburgh because of what the recent history has been. But go out there and win the game. Go out there and win the game because it can be the difference between a home playoff game and not. Obviously, everybody talks about seeding, playing for matchups, this, that, and the other, but a home playoff game is always big, right? I think a home playoff game is always big. Baltimore would be buzzing, and I'd love it. But one game at a time, really rough stretch for the Ravens with 3 games in 11 days, but you get a big win. Lamar Jackson gets a Jackson 5, Rashod Bateman. I mean, again, this was just a solid wire-to-wire Ravens win, right? That's what it was. Haven't had a lot of these over the course of the season. You got like Buffalo, Denver, Tampa, if you want to count that one. It's been much more of the heart racing, and that always is what you have to deal with this Ravens team, right? The heart is never still when watching the Ravens, but bad team, you play against them, supposed to dominate. Sometimes that hasn't happened for the Ravens, and look where we are. The Ravens did it. So hopefully they can continue that momentum in for the rest of their season, and of course we'll be breaking it all down here on Locked On Ravens. So that's all I have to hear today on this live edition of Locked On Ravens. Really appreciate you tuning in. Again, on the way out, hit that like and subscribe button in video form. Follow along in audio form for 5 days a week of daily Ravens coverage, plus more. And if you have a friend or a family member who wants some daily Ravens coverage, be sure to send them our way over here on the show. Coming up tomorrow, we're talking more Ravens football, Lamar Jackson MVP conversation, and what the latest news is surrounding the team after their Week 15 win against the Giants. So be sure to stay tuned, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.